What is femininity in a woman, and how do you think it should be perceived?
Sure. Well, I mean, even that question sounds simple, but it's a big question, Drain. So let me see what I can, I'll do my best to kind of keep it simple, break it down. Femininity and its counterpart masculinity both are energies within our psyche. So they exist within all of us. We all have both femininity and masculinity. Now, each of us as individuals will tend to lean more toward one polarity than the other. Not that we can't navigate both, of course we can. But we will generally feel more comfortable being in one polarity more of the time. And each of these qualities, each of these energies has its own unique qualities, and they work together, especially when we can bring forward these energies in their best ways possible. So, some of the highlights and key qualities of femininity, our greatest strengths are absolutely in our intuition and our emotional depth, but we also have access to pleasure, joy, creativity, flow, communication, communion, connection, empathy. And the energy of femininity is receptive. It wants to take in and even draw in energy. So that's juxtaposed, of course, with healthy masculine energy, which has leadership, guidance, nurturing, direction, some effort, generosity at its core. And the masculine is a giving energy. So within us, we again have both of these inside of us, but we will tend towards one or the other. And it's not always the case like we live in 2025, where there are so many different forms of gender expression, human expression, sexuality, all of that. But in a general way, and often, people born in a female body will tend toward the feminine polarity. So my work and what I do is talk primarily to women who identify as feminine and who are interested in really destroying and dismantling the cultural narratives that prevent us from being in that feminine in a comfortable way, but also in a powerful way.
I like that because you highlighted on a number of behaviors that the person who identifies as a woman can be, right? Like you mentioned
Yeah.
community, you mentioned communication. You
Yeah.
also mentioned it's a giving energy. And I've always thought that to be the case, right? Because as someone that is a man and I have more, and I'm more in my masculine energy than I'm in my feminine energy,
Yeah.
I'm the type of person that wants to like give, provide,
Yes.
right? Like you hear these type of words,
Yes.
right? But
Yeah. And it's
why
a
do you
beautiful energy.
absolutely, but why do you think some people maybe confuse the two, or maybe not confuse, maybe there's a lack of understanding on
Yeah.
what they can um provide in those energies?
Absolutely. And there is a lot of confusion. And the first thing I definitely want to respond to before addressing this question is it's nobody's fault. Like, this is not a blame game. You know, I kind of chalk it up to a couple of things. Number one, we've all grown up in this culture at this time, and I'm just going to name it. The culture is patriarchal. It just is. It has been for millennia. And there's debate as to whether we can call it the patriarchy for the past 3,000 years or even as far back as 8,000 years. So this culture, this patriarchal culture, has a long time to entrain us in its thought forms, which actually distort both masculinity and femininity. It's not helpful or handy for either energy in its most powerful way. But because it is a patriarchy, it does center masculine values, again, in a distorted way, not even necessarily a healthy way. And we've all just been indoctrinated into it. And so there have been some harmful narratives that have contributed even to women themselves trying to repress, suppress, or even deny the feminine parts of themselves because we're taught that women are less valuable, women are weak, women are, to be seen and not heard. Women are only pretty when they smile, that women are illogical, and boy, is that terrible. Women are too emotional. And so women themselves actually go, oh my gosh, well, I better not be those things because they're not seen as valuable. And if I display these natural qualities of who I am, it's going to be, people are going to turn me away. I'm going to be seen as difficult, as too much. I'm going to be labeled high maintenance. I'm going to be called a bitch. I'm going to be called crazy. And so we actually do a lot of kind of curation and careful management of our own personalities and internal traits to try and be accepted by the culture in the way that it says we need to be accepted.
It seems like women are giving up a lot of maybe what they would want to be to appease
Yeah.
people who aren't necessarily that important to them, think they should be, right?
That is a fair way to put it, Terrain. Yeah, and they do. And again, it's nobody's fault. I mean, I speak with women obviously all the time about this, and we are just under the impression that this is how it is. Right. And so, one of the reasons why I wrote the book, The Way of the Satisfied Woman, is so that we can start questioning how it is, because this world wasn't made for us. This world wasn't made for the feminine woman, and it's told us that we're not powerful, that we're less valuable, and that our gifts are not important. And that's a lie, because femininity is powerful. Femininity is fierce. Femininity has extraordinary qualities that, when brought forward, actually bring more balance to relationship, to our communities, to our careers, to our worlds. It creates connection. So we're really at a loss when we diminish the feminine. And, we see that a lot in this culture with this strong narrative and valuing of doing everything ourselves, that kind of DIY mentality where it's better if you've pulled up your own bootstraps, gotten it all done yourself, forged your own path, success at all costs, success even to the detriment of others. I definitely believed in it. I spent almost 20 years pursuing a career on my own. Katie bar the doors. I'll do it myself. Let me prove to myself and everybody else that I can do it. And we've fallen prey to this narrative that women not only should do it all for themselves and everyone else at all times, but they should never stop doing it all. Because as soon as we stop that externalization of energy, that doing everything for everyone else, the threat is that we're no longer of value and that we will be discarded. So it's kept feminine women really exhausted, burnt out, on their back foot, and in a place of disempowerment. And I challenge that, because I think as soon as we stop doing everything for everyone else and we start really receiving some energy from those around us, it actually creates a place of power and empowerment for the woman.
How much of that do you think is from a woman's trauma from her past then?
It's a great question. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I think that for women, growing up in this culture is a trauma outside of whatever else we may experience. You know, um, and that's not even compounded with whatever happened in our family growing up, the childhood traumas that were micro traumas or macro traumas or, focus traumas or whatever else we're dealing with. Just the fact that we're born a woman in this culture, we're automatically going to have more challenges and more difficulty really being heard, being seen, being honored. And so I think that we are coming definitely from kind of, the the backfield here, trying to catch up to the race that's already in progress.
And I think that you're 100% true because I asked that question because, as I shared earlier, right, I work with women who have been abused, either physically, financially, verbally, emotionally, or mentally, even spiritually in some cases. And what I been able to identify with the women that I work with and what I've read in the research is that many women, when they've gone through a traumatic experience, either from their childhood or maybe in their teenage years or adulthood, they feel that they have to protect themselves. As you mentioned, right? The feminine energy is receiving, the masculine
Yeah.
energy is giving.
Yeah.
So they're at a point where I tried to receive feminine energy, but someone always took advantage of me. So now
Yes.
I have my guard up. I have to protect myself, right? So the energy I give out is now I'm in my masculine. So
That's right.
I'm the one that's protecting myself. I'm the one that's doing X, Y, and Z. I'm doing the DIY. I can build my own bed. I can build the renovations in the house, right? There's someone who she was so in her quote unquote masculine energy that even when she went grocery shopping, she would she would instead of asking for help and receiving help, she would rather struggle because she's so used to
Yeah.
doing it on her own, right? Do you see that in the people we're working with where they're so used to being on the defensive that even
Yes,
if you were to offer them help, it's a sign of attack. You're
absolutely.
thinking I can't do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. I actually write about it in the book. I call it donning the mask of the masculine. And it's a protective mechanism that women look, they need it. Unfortunately, like I said, this world was not built for us. And so not only have we been taught that masculine values are more prized and that's the way to achieve success, but it is a protection mechanism because the feminine is often hurt. It's often taken advantage of. It's often drained, ravaged, as opposed to ravished, which is a whole different thing that the feminine loves. But when it's ravaged, when it's taken advantage of, when it's drained of all of its resources, the feminine, it's like a well, it dries up. If the feminine doesn't have that replenishment, it becomes just this empty husk. And that's what happens to women. We become burnt out, we become exhausted, we become tired, we're more prone to things like autoimmune disorders, which are, I mean, the research is showing that they're inflammation and stress based. So we're at a complete disadvantage, and the only way we know how to get through that is to armor up, to man up for the world, to brace ourselves with this energy. And what happens is it actually, again, unfortunately, does everyone a disservice because as we man up, as we armor up, as we protect ourselves, we deny a healthy masculine counterpart the opportunity to offer his protection. As we man up and masculine up and armor ourselves for the world, we show the world that we are so capable of being in our masculine that the world responds by being in its feminine. And then we end up having to take care of everybody else. I can't tell you how many women I speak to, especially women in their 40s. There's growing numbers of statistics. Women in their 40s and 50s are initiating divorce because they suddenly realize that not only are they raising their children, they're raising their husbands too. Because there's so much in their masculine, their husbands have defaulted to the feminine. You know, anytime someone is in the presence of the masculine is powerful and everyone else will abdicate their authority to that, especially, I mean, and so we end up exhausted. We end up exhausted. And there is, you know, even more kind of micro traumas in that because we see our usefulness only as being, doing, and efforting our way through life for the benefit of everyone else. And we're the ones who get left behind.
And that leads to like the joke online where a lot of women who are in their masculine, more so than feminine, when they have children, if they have sons, they're raising the sons in a way to always be in their feminine. So they're raising the kind of men that they wouldn't want to be with anyways. But
Yes.
because they're in their masculine energy, they're
Yes.
protective. They're giving, right?
Exactly.
And
Oh my
then you put these
gosh.
boys in their feminine energy, they're receiving it, not knowing any better because it's all that they've known, right? So now when they get into the
Yes.
world, what happens? The cycle
Exactly
continues.
right.
So what happens in that case then? Like, how do we try to correct the course if we can?
Yeah. I'm laughing because I actually had this discussion with another podcaster. I think it was 2 weeks ago or so, and her podcast primarily focuses on single moms. And so I said something like, "Okay, you know, if your kids are 12, like, please stop doing their laundry." And she just had this meltdown look on her face, and she was like, "Well, then the laundry won't get done." And I was like, "I know." And that's going to be really hard for everybody for a while. But ultimately, that boy of yours is going to grow up and be a husband. And do you want him counting on the wife to do the laundry all the time? Because that's what's exhausted you. We cannot perpetuate these tropes. And look, this is not an easy answer. You're right. We have to give everyone grace about around this because we're in a difficult situation. We've gotten ourselves here. It's going to be some time to get ourselves out. But what I essentially postulate and write about in the book is based on it's really based on psychology. So my PhD is in mythology and psychology and the way that humans develop and the way that we interact in the world. And like it or not, all children up until the age of about 10 years old are in their feminine. They are. They're receptive, they're inquisitive, they're asking all the questions, they need all the energy drawn toward them, they're little creative beings of energy. And so the agreement that you have as an adult, raising children under the age of 10, is that everybody's going to shift into their masculine to protect, provide for those kids, to guide them, to be leaders for those children. But at the age of 10, or thereabouts, there are now the hormones of pre-puberty flooding their body. Their brain is developing differently. They're starting to switch into their own individualism. And that is when they actually shift into their own polarities. And so at that stage, psychologically, developmentally, what they then need to see in their environment is an example of their adult humans in relationship who are taking care of them in opposite polarity. And if they don't see the relationship of the humans and their environment taking care of them in opposite polarity, they just stay in their feminine and they carry on. So, we do need to start to give especially our young men, opportunities to get into their masculine. And I don't know if you've trained, I really admire and respect the work of Michael Meade. Have you ever heard of Michael Meade? Yeah, he's a phenomenal, he's a mythologist. He comes from the same background that I do, and he works with young men because young women have an interesting biology in that their biology facilitates their psychological shift into womanhood. At the time that we get our periods, we have to grapple with the fact that we can now be responsible for creating another human life. And so for, whether that's an advantage or a disadvantage, that's reality. And that usually kicks the young woman into that adult woman psychology. Unfortunately, young men don't have that same biological kick. So unless they have a social, familial, or communal kick into adulthood, they stay young boys. And that creates an incredibly detrimental psychological environment for the eventual adult who, is unable to really own his masculinity and manhood and take responsibility for his environment, his family. They kind of fall apart. And unfortunately, when they marry a woman, they're essentially going to want to be mothered in that environment. And, it's kind of an evil cycle that at any time we are capable of arresting and doing differently.
Sometimes I look at those situations as you described it, and it is on the outside. I'm going to be a little cynical here. It
Yeah,
is on the outside very sad and very unfortunate
yeah,
for the men and the women involved who grow up in these situations and who become this way, right? But then
yeah.
when you look at it from a perspective of how it impacts the individual now, you could be a little bit more less skeptical of it, more cynical of it, because you're like, well, they're impacting me in this way that really they're adults and they should be able to work through it. Right. But
Well,
but I think
yeah.
some people struggle to work through it and struggle to understand how deep rooted it gets.
Yeah.
Right. How deep rooted is it in the man and in the women when it comes to these types of upbringings and these behaviors?
I mean, this is the work of our lifetime, Terrain. This is why we're doing the work. Every psychology will tell you that you are wounded in relationship as a young person, and then you are meant to be healed in relationship, really an intimate relationship as an adult. And whatever you go through as a young person, you are destined to play out as an adult until you resolve that problem. I mean, that's just kind of the way of psychology. And I hear what you're saying. And really, I have compassion for both sides because on one hand, yeah, look, you're a product of your upbringing, and I'm sure, I hope that the people who helped you raise you, they were doing their best. And everybody's grown up in this environment, and everybody's received improper training. We don't really know how to navigate these energies and these polarities and these psychologies, and we're all just figuring it out. And we're in a very new stage in our cultural development where women do have agency. We're at a new stage where women can get divorced. I mean, up until the 40s or 50s, women who wanted to divorce their husbands were deemed insane and sent to mental institutions to have things like electroshock therapy because the choice to be on their own was so outrageous that it could be nothing but crazy. So these are all relatively new problems which require new solutions. And yes, every individual can find the resources necessary to help resolve the problems if they want to. And that's the good news about today, that people like you, people like me, the people that you and I work with, we're all here to support a healthier transformation, not only for the adults who have found themselves in this conundrum, but hopefully for the children who come after us so that we can support future generations from going through these same challenges.
Do you think then some people, because they've been in this type of masculine or feminine energy to their detriment instead of to their benefit, that they will continue to stay in it because they found a way for it to benefit them?
Well, I guess I would throw the question back and ask, is it really benefiting them? Like, who is it really benefiting? You know, I hear all the time from people like, oh, it's just easier to stay the same, right? And yeah, I guess so. If you're used to doing a thing a certain way, I guess that's quote easier. But ultimately, stepping into your power, stepping into your best self, yeah, it's going to be different. It might require some work. You might have to let go of control. But ultimately, that's where the ease is. Because if you're creating misery around you, if your relationship is stagnant, if you're putting all of the effort and energy in places that it's not giving a return, like none of that is easy. So I guess I would just wonder, like, what exactly is easy about it? Just because you're used to it, I don't think that gets you a free pass.
I'll give you an example of someone who I've observed, and this is just through the women that this person keeps around them and then the men
Okay.
that he keeps around them. And
Sure.
what he does is that he spends a lot of time in his feminine energy, so he's receiving.
Yeah.
So what he has been able to do is that he's been able to, in a way, manipulate some of the women who are constantly in their masculine energy want to give. So
Right.
he gets money from them.
Oh
He gets them
boy.
to take care of things. He gets them to pay for flights, to buy food, right? So he's
Right.
always
I see.
taking. But the thing is, he's aware of this. So it's not like he's doing it and he's like, oh my God, what am I doing? He's aware. So when I asked that question, I asked it because I've seen someone do it. I've seen someone brag about it.
Uh,
And the women, they don't know because they're not a part of the conversations with the men. But he'll say that, hey, Train, I was able to have Alana pay for my flight to New Jersey. Hey Alana, you know what? I
right.
got this nice computer chair, because she sent it to me all because this person has created a sense of groupthink. So now what has happened to some of these women when they get a relationship to your point and someone enters with confidence, masculine energy, they're like, I'm not used to this. There's a clash. They're used to
Right.
always giving, but now someone wants to give and take them away from the person that is using them. But now
Right.
there's a struggle not only mentally because they know they should go this way, but they're like, I've been doing this for so long. So
But
what are your
he
thoughts on
needs
that?
me. Yeah. It sounds like an addiction. I understand. It also sounds like codependency. So quick little 101 on codependency, which, again, we will all forgive ourselves for. About 95, probably more percent of adult relationships exist in codependency. So you'll just recognize if this sounds like something that you're in. Codependency always has three main characters. You're going to have a savior, someone who wants to swoop in and believes you can't save yourself, so I'm going to have to do that for you. A victim, someone who is always, the world is against me, it's never my fault. And the persecutor, it is your fault, you're the one doing this to me. And both people in a relationship, they can switch between all three of these. You don't have to stay in one. But if you find yourself in a relationship where any one of these three characteristics are present, that's codependency. And codependency kills. I love true crime. Anytime you hear on a true crime show, if I can't have them, no one can, that's codependency. And that kills. So that is not ever going to end well. It doesn't have to end in death. I don't mean to be dire. I'm just, bragging my true crime cred here. But it's going to be dire emotionally, financially, psychologically. And women have absolutely been indoctrinated into this narrative of I can love them through it. I need to save them. It's my job to help them. And I will just give you permission and tell you that it's not. It's not your job to save them. It's not your job to save anyone. So I can see how, from your example, that behavior is definitely working for that man. It's working great. And he's absolutely going to find savior women out there to pay for all of his flights to New Jersey. What I'd like to do is catch those women and get them into their feminine power because I guarantee you, Terrain, if they're in their feminine power, there's no chance they're reaching into their pocketbook to pay for the flight for him. And they're not going to attract a man in his feminine. A woman in her feminine power can only attract the masculine man.
Why do you then think it's so hard for women in that situation to break free and understand that they're not supposed to be in that type of situation if they were healthy within themselves, as well as maybe seeing the tree from the forest from the tree because they only see that, well, to your point, right? I have to save this person. I have to do their laundry, right? Like you hear all these stories with like they're not only taking care of their children, to your earlier point, they're taking care of their male friends, they're taking care of their relationships. They always seem to have this need to give and give at the detriment of maybe themselves.
Well, I'll answer from my perspective because again, the only way that I can write and talk about any of this terrain is because I've been there, right? I have paid for those flights to New Jersey. I have stayed in relationships that were incredibly abusive. I've been there. And one of the things I know, not only from my personal experience, but from my research, is that whether it's a belief system or whether it's true, women believe that this kind of behavior is the only way that they maintain a connection and love. And every human on the planet wants to be loved. They want to belong. And women have been, it's absolutely true, discarded as soon as they are not in service, as soon as they are not bending over backwards, as soon as they are not doing everything. So it creates a sense of safety and belonging to behave this way for the woman. Now, I think it's a little, it feels challenging to me to say, well, if she's just in her healthy feminine, she wouldn't do that. Look, we all need to be in our healthy feminine. But I think there's a little bit of a tug and a pull here that she wants love and belonging and just doesn't really realize or recognize or even remember that love and belonging can happen without draining yourself. That love and belonging can happen and that you are worthy of it from a partner and a person who contributes as much to you. She might not have evidence of that. She may not have ever seen that. She may have never been given that as like an option, even as a young person or as an adult. So I think it requires a lot of support, a lot of training, and a lot of empowerment for women these days that they are more valuable. They do have worth outside of what they can continuously give and drain themselves of. So it's not all on the women. It's not all on the men. I think it's a multi-part problem, and we all have our roles to play in healing this very, very pervasive issue that's happening right now.
And that's a conversation I had with a few women, and I let them know that it isn't their job to fix everyone. Because one of them responded and they're saying that, well, I do this because it's my job. Then I asked the question,
Then she should be getting
who
paid.
Yeah, who appointed you this job? Right?
Right.
What are the benefits? What's the pay? What do you get in return? And what was interesting is that one said that, well, if I don't continue this way, what am I going to do with my time?
Mm,
And I asked her and I answered her this way, and I said, you have become so involved in this situation that you don't even remember what you used to do with the time before it.
yeah. She's
And I was like,
lost
I think,
herself.
yeah, and that's exactly what I said. I think you are having an identity crisis. You don't even
Yeah.
remember who you were 3 years ago because this friendship, this group, they haven't been friends for that long. Like you'd think it was like 10, 15 years, right? But I wanted to point out to her and say that you were someone before this. You'll definitely be someone after this. I was
Yeah.
like, but here is what impacts a lot of people to stay in situations that they know is damaging to themselves, is because if they were to leave it, they would be alone. And many people can't deal with feeling alone or
Yeah.
feeling loneliness. What are your thoughts, Alana?
Well, and that's completely understandable because we as human beings are not designed to be alone. We are hardwired for connection. Our evolution has been dependent on intimacy and connection with another human. We are, I mean, it's biological, it's psychological, it is written within the history of the entire planet. Like it makes sense. And so, I understand and I of course believe in personal growth and self-healing and loving yourself, yes, but loving yourself does not mean that you don't want to be loved by someone else. It doesn't mean that, I can love myself and still be really upset that I have to deal with all of this on my own. It makes sense that we'd want to be in connection. And I understand the perspective of, well, I'd rather keep giving myself away than have to do everything by myself on my own. That, I get it, and what all of us deserves is connection to a healthy partner who has as much skin in the game as we do, right? I like the notion that Brene Brown offers that relationships are not 50-50. Relationships are 100%. And sometimes one person's giving 10 and the other's giving 90. But it can't be that way all the time. You got to have it slide. Like sometimes it's 60-40, sometimes it's 70-30. But if you find you're always on 90%, 95, 100%, that's not a relationship, that's a sinking ship. So I value and understand the desire to be connected and in connection and in a relationship. And I want to encourage, especially the women listening, to start really taking stock of that sliding scale. And if you're always in detriment, my dear friend, you are not in relationship. You are being taken advantage of.
But do you think then women are kind of conditioned to always give and give because the different hats that they wear, such as a girlfriend, such as a wife, such as a mother, there's these connotations associated with it, or these maybe expectations from people who are looking to take advantage of them that you always give, right? Like you hear a lot of women talk about, oh, you know what, Alana, I'm burnt out. I
Yes.
do 40 hours at work, I do 40 hours at home, and then I got
Yeah.
to do everything else. Do you think that maybe a lot of that is because of the expectations placed on to women to behave this way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's cultural. I think it's cultural conditioning. I think it's a patriarchal narrative to keep women dismissive and submissive and devalued. And I think, again, we have nothing but examples of when women don't continue to produce and give, we are discarded. So it becomes a safety and protection mechanism. But I want to encourage everyone listening that things are changing. The reason that you and I can talk about this right now, the reason that I can write a book like this is because we live in a time that never existed before. Women right now have more power, agency, and choice than they have ever had in history, regardless of what's literally going on right now. Right now, we have more power, agency, and choice than we ever have. I mean, I reference this all the time. It wasn't until I think 1987 that a woman could open her own bank account without a male cosigner. Women couldn't have their own mortgages until a couple of decades ago. So we're in a very recent period of history with really like the guardrails are off. No one really knows what they're doing. We have thousands of years of legacy of what masculine success and fulfillment looks like. We don't have that pathway for women. And this world wasn't made for us. This world wasn't made with us in mind. And so that's why I'm encouraging women to seek satisfaction and not success, because satisfaction is more on feminine terms. And what we want is not equality, meaning equal to what men have. We want equality on our terms, what we need, what we value, what makes us feel good. And satisfaction is a sense of being, well, let me define it for you because I think this is really important. The definition of satisfaction is the pleasure derived from the fulfillment of your wishes and needs. Now, everyone on the planet wants to have their needs met. And I don't mean just like basic, food and shelter, but like everything that's really important to you. And yeah, of course, we can do it all and get our own needs met and everything, but it's so much more valuable when you've got people in your life who are also helping you to get your needs met and to have your wishes fulfilled and to work on those. That's what brings life meaning. And we're not just here to exist. We're here to have a meaningful, impactful life in whatever way we can. And for the feminine, the idea of pleasure, pleasure is a feminine quality. When a woman feels pleasure, she's lit up from the inside out with it. She feels it in every cell. And that fulfillment is not an end goal. Okay, it's not like success. There's not a benchmark or a final point to be reached. Fulfillment is holistic, it's ever evolving. So the pleasure derived from the fulfillment of wishes and needs is satisfaction. And my friends, satisfaction is a feeling. It's a feeling. And one of the superpowers of femininity are our feelings and our intuition. And when we are feeling a sense of satisfaction, when that is present in our world, then trust me, everyone benefits because the research has shown when a woman is feeling good, her family is happier. When a woman is stressed and under tension and unhappy, her whole family is unhappy. When a woman is given money or successful in business, she doesn't keep it for herself. She spreads it to her community. So when we make the woman happy, when we make women satisfied, everyone benefits. It's like that old saying my mother used to love, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So I want women to take that back. Look, this isn't a selfish pursuit. Your satisfaction is actually critical for all the people that you love. When you're happy and fulfilled, they will be because you're not going to leave them behind. So it's, I think, I hope, deeply empowering for women to realize that their happiness is critical. It's important. And the people in your life who love you will value that. They will want to keep you happy. They will cherish and honor your emotions and intuition and be directed by them. And the healthy masculine in your life will never second guess your intuition. He will never dismiss your emotions because he knows that his decisions are going to be best made in alignment with them. Because if they're out of alignment and you feel a sense of discomfort, the whole system degrades. So anyway, that's satisfaction, Terrain. That's why we need it.
No, I agree because I realized that satisfaction and success were two different things once I started to look at my job differently and was able to fulfill myself within instead of searching for external things. But when it comes to maybe those who don't have our experiences, Alana, what are some of the ways that they can determine and create satisfaction for themselves?
Yeah. So at the heart, so even before we get to satisfaction, which is really our goal here, we need to have four things, and I call these the four keys. Women need to have safety, meaning they are able to be themselves and free from harm in body, mind, and heart. Security, whatever it is that makes them feel secure, whether it's financial security, emotional security, that things are, you can count on them. They're not going to just be ripped out from underneath you. The masculine provides security with protection, physical protection, emotional protection. Trust, we need to trust ourselves. And for the feminine, that means trusting your emotions and intuition over and above your logic and reason. So for the feminine to trust her emotions and intuition and really center them, and to trust everyone else around you. So those around you have trust and faith in your emotions and intuition. And then finally, to be cherished by the masculine. So internally, if you are a feminine woman, that your masculine side is kind of in service to your feminine, that it's not taking over. You don't want to don the mask of the masculine all the time because that's going to result in exhaustion and burnout, but that your logic and reason listens first to your intuition and emotions. But externally, to be cherished by the masculine means that the masculine will never leave you alone in your pain until a solution is reached. So at the heart, at the base, at the foundation, all women need safety, security, trust in themselves and the world around them, and to be cherished by the masculine. So we got to get those things sorted first. And one of the things I recommend for women is actually to be a little cutthroat about it. It is totally fine to look around your life and fire places, spaces, people, things that are not giving you those four keys. Now, again, let's give everyone grace. We can give them the opportunity to step up. And if they don't, get them gone. And I also understand, like family members, you can't always fire them. So maybe you limit your contact, you limit your time, you draw strong boundaries. All of that is okay. But in the places and things that we can control, which is, on some level limited, we want to ensure that we've got a life and a place and a space and a world around us that helps to cultivate and keep those four keys sacred. And once we've got that mostly stable foundation of the four keys, then we can pursue satisfaction, this pursuit of wishes and needs and all of this fulfillment. And you'll know what satisfies you because it's going to be different for all of us. Women are, unique individuals, especially in this day and age. Like, I don't need to there's no old tropes anymore. The woman is not happy in the kitchen. I don't even whatever. Like we're not doing that. If the woman is happy hopping on her motorcycle, please let her do that. And she's going to do it in the most feminine, graceful way and dodge and weave through traffic. And the guys are all going to be jealous. I've seen it happen. So whatever brings you satisfaction, meaning when you get into that place or when you get doing that thing or when you get connected in that relationship or whatever, you're going to feel pleasure. Satisfaction is the pleasure derived from the fulfillment of wishes and needs. Pleasure for the woman, it is physical. It's visceral. It is the life force energy that is alive within us. You'll feel it in your cells, in your fingertips. You'll feel it beaming from within you. And that is what everyone else around you will respond to. Your pleasure will bring joy to others. So that's how you find satisfaction.
So then for like myself, for a
Mhm.
man who wants to help his woman or a woman achieve that, what are some of the steps that I can do? Because three of them you mentioned comes from the masculine energy, which
Oh, they
men
all do.
hopefully have. Oh, they all do. So how would we help?
Yeah. Uh, First of all, thank you for asking. Really. I just want to honor you, and like it's even bringing a tear to my eye. More men need to ask that question. I do a lot of these interviews, and I think this is the first time that I've been asked by a man, so thanks. Um, yes, the masculine, our masculine partnerships, men around us are absolutely instrumental. in helping us to create this, especially because we live in the patriarchy, especially because this world was not built with us in mind, especially because we will be so much more powerful and in our feminine when we have good masculine counterparts to champion and support us. So, here's how the masculine contributes to those four keys. Safety comes with protection. Your protection. It can be emotional protection, like don't bring home your shit. You know, it can, if someone else is kind of giving your girl grief, step in, stand up for her. It can be physical protection. I mean, it can be dangerous to be a woman walking around anywhere. So there's a lot of different levels of protection. The masculine offers protection. Security is providership. The masculine provides. And this is that generous spirit of the masculine. The healthy masculine, my God, Terrain, good, healthy masculine men, they have the biggest hearts. I love a big, big-hearted masculine man because he is generous in all ways with his time, with his finances, with his expertise, with his, cooking breakfast, with whatever it is he can provide, he will provide, and that providership fuels him. And the receivership of the feminine is fuel for her. I mean, this will set the two of you on fire. So women can make their own money now. It doesn't have to be about the man bringing home the bacon. Providership happens in many ways, but that is the masculine trait that provides security. Okay. Trust from the masculine, ready for this one, is loyalty. Now, let me define loyalty. A woman can trust a man when he is loyal and she knows he is loyal, when everything he does is with her in mind. And I mean everything. Okay, that text message came through from that long ago ex that you didn't even realize still had your number. And you look at it and you think to yourself, what would make her happy? I didn't ask for this text. Like, this wasn't on me, right? I'm going to tell her about it. And I'm going to say, baby, I got this random text. So transparency. And I knew it would make you unhappy. So I, blocked it, deleted it, whatever would make her most happy. And you just share that with her. When you go out, you behave in a way that she would approve of and love. And she is so confident that you're always having her at the center of your mind and behaving and acting in accordance with what would make her proud of you, love you more. That's trust. You can go out and do anything if you have that level of trust with your feminine woman. And then the cherishing, that does come from the masculine. The feminine desires most deeply to be cherished by the masculine. And my favorite definition is that the masculine never leaves the feminine alone in her pain until a solution can be reached. So when a woman is in pain, because women are feelers. We are deeply connected to our emotions, and there is nothing wrong with that. It does not make us crazy. It does not invalidate our experience. In fact, that is the power of our experience, and our emotions are like a communication from our insides telling us what is right or wrong with our world. And we will feel that and know that before anybody else. We're like the canary in the coal mine. So if we look at you and say, baby, you know what? I don't feel good about this. I just don't. Doesn't matter what this is. You are there to believe her and then to work with her on what a solution could be. Because what the masculine is great at is fixing things. Masculine loves to fix things. But the masculine will fix things with her buy-in. Baby, how does this feel? Does that feel like a good solution to you? Okay, great. I was actually having a conversation with a really wonderful man recently who said, well, look, okay, I get this cherishing thing. That all sounds great. But what if the woman comes to me and says, the house is on fire? And me in the masculine, I just go around the house and I basically look and there's no fire. And I go to her and I tell her there's no fire. I'm using my logic and I'm fixing the problem. And I said, no, you're not. Because she is feeling terrified. She's feeling scared that the house is on fire. She's concerned for her safety and yours. So you don't worry about the truth or being right, right? We're going to get to that later because she can see reason. She'll get there. But right now she's feeling scared. So you make her feel comfortable and don't prove to her she's wrong. Take her outside. Put her on the lawn. Give her a blanket. Baby, are you okay right now? How does that feel? Do you feel safe? Do you feel safe? Can I go in and check about the fire in the house? When she feels safe, she's going to be excited about you going and checking the house is not on fire. So that's kind of the negotiation. Because if we're really in our feminine, which is where we want to be, we don't need to fix the problem. We have you for that, right? That's your energy. I love outsourcing. You're more than capable of doing it, but we need you to do it in accordance with what we're feeling and how we're responding to it. And that's the balance. So all of these four keys are really designed to be in partnership, in healthy partnership between masculine and feminine.
I think a lot of men will appreciate the way you've broken that down because it gives them a sense of responsibility and accountability, right? My
Yeah.
actions have to be in alignment with what she would want because if I go out there thinking I can do whatever it is I want, maybe she doesn't know, maybe she doesn't see it. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people forget that they can pick up on the vibes on something,
100.
right? Like women are
Oh,
very intuitive about that. Would you say
oh
that?
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And here's the thing. If a woman gets a vibe, she is not letting that go. She is not letting that go. A woman will not rest. She will pick that scab until she gets to the bottom of it. All women will. This is the power of inquisition. Women are inquisitive. We question. We want the truth. We're the truth seekers. That's our energy. So if we're not getting truth and transparency, you darn right. We are going to, I mean, think about, you remember the movie? Well, she was a real person, Erin Brockovich. She was like, something's not right here. And boy, she changed an entire like town because she just knew something wasn't right. Every woman has that in her heart. And men, you got to be on notice with that. That is not something you can get around. You can't fool it. You can't try to pretend. Transparency is the only way through. But, and look, of course you're going to be on your own. Of course you're going to be out in the world doing things without her around. That's fine. The trust comes when you're always doing things with her in your heart. That's simple. If you love her, like, hey, would she be proud of me right now? And if not, just course correct. It's okay, just change your behavior. No big deal. You don't have to grovel about it. Just be an upstanding, loving, masculine partner for your chosen, cherished feminine. The end.
You mentioned patriarchy, and I want to tie it into this. Do you then think, because I've seen this from a male perspective, that even though many men are aware of this behavior and aware of the impact to their women, in some cases, they are shamed not to behave that way, but to be
Right.
a man and behave a certain way, which a lot of people deem as toxic masculinity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I might ask you what are some examples of that kind of behavior? Because there are a lot, and frankly, men are not the problem either. Men are amazing. Like I'm not a fan of this term that we keep using, this toxic masculinity, because toxic indicates it cannot be repaired, and then it's just going to kill you, right? And masculinity is precious. It's powerful. It's necessary. And it is not being done a service by the patriarchy either. So men are not the problem. Masculinity is not the problem. The way I call it a distortion, right? Like the way that light gets distorted through water. If you clear the distortion, the source energy is fine. It's fine. So let me give you an example. A wonderful masculine trait that everybody needs is leadership and guidance. I mean, those are critical, but in a distorted way, you distort leadership and guidance, and they become power and control. Nobody needs that, right? So you remove the distortion, get back to leadership and guidance. We're in business. Everybody's healthy. So I don't want to vilify the men. I want to empower the men to say, hey, look, you've got everything you need. Let's just, like, if it's not coming out right, like, let's wipe away the distortion. Let's get to the heart of what the pure and beautiful energy is that is actually supportive to both you, your cherished feminine, your kids, the world around you. And then we move beyond patriarchy. Because patriarchy really seeks to isolate and control. That's its end game. It wants power over others. It wants to keep us separate, which is why it's got that heavy DIY individuality narrative. And, it's been to benefit the men, but, not in a good way. So I just, we're all at detriment. It's nobody's fault. Men, I love you. You are fine. And we're all learning what the healthy expressions of these energies are because there's toxic femininity too, Terrain. You know, a woman's desire for inquisition and getting to the truth can turn into heavy nagging. That doesn't serve anybody, right? A woman's powerful communication and access to her emotions when it's distorted becomes manipulation. That's not helpful for anybody. But again, at its source, those root energies, everybody wins.
Do you then think, in a way, because the distortion happens from external sources, right? Like,
Yep.
let's say it'll be pumped in that if a man, I'll give you an example since you asked one, if a man
Yeah.
pays too much attention to his woman or is very caring for his needs, they would say that he's like a simp or he's less than, right? Or
Really?
on the flip side, oh yeah, it's that gets said quite a bit, right? And then on the flip
Huh.
side, you mentioned the women now. If the woman is
Yeah.
too taking care of their partner, they'll say that, oh, you're a slave, you're taking us back 100 years. Do you think then, in a sense, it's being normalized because we don't want, not you and I now, just in general, we don't want to see people have the healthy, the connectivity between the two. They want to maybe see some people use it in a distorted way, like you mentioned, power, manipulation, nagging. They rather push that narrative versus the other side.
I would like to still just think of it as improper training, right? That we don't really have good roadmaps for this quite yet because again, it's very new. It's very new. Women have maybe this much agency for maybe the last 10, 20 years. I mean, I think even that's generous. I think we're talking about, I mean, when did the term toxic masculinity even start to percolate? I don't remember it really before the Me Too movement, which was 8 years ago. So we're just kind of grappling with these issues and figuring them out. One of the things I see when people talk about this is that, and I think it's unfortunate, is that they want to just neutralize everything. They want to just, it's not about masculine and feminine. We're just equal. I saw a comment the other day. I don't want my man to lead me. I want him to walk beside me. And I thought, yeah, but then you're dating your brother. And I'm pretty sure you don't want that either. That there is actually strength in our differences. There's not strength in differential. When there's a power differential, that's a problem. But having different characteristics, opposites attract. Complementary characteristics, you empower each other more. It is okay to be in a role that's what you want, right? We're all adults, we get to choose here. If you are in a female body but you really relate to the masculine and you're on the masculine polarity, no problem. If you're in a male body and you really relate to the feminine and you're on the feminine polarity, no problem. But you'll attract the opposite and you're going to want the opposite because I promise you, everyone in their own natural polarity is going to feel more at ease, less burnt out, less overwhelmed. And as you said, if everyone has a role to play, they kind of have a job. If everyone is just doing everyone's job all of the time, there's no magic there. There's no spark there, especially when it comes to intimate relationship.
And then it never ends, right? Like I think you mentioned it earlier, where there isn't an end, there isn't like an end to it, just continues and continues, right? Because you're always just walking this path that just doesn't end. And I remember watching an interview where someone said that when someone is looking to manipulate someone
Mm.
and they would discard, let's say, for example, it's a man, right? Then they'll discard the woman, or it could go either way. there's a victim being born every year. It's like graduation, right?
Sure.
Every year there's someone out there to be taken advantage of and misused. And as we close, Alana, if you had Aladdin's lamp and you had three wishes, what are three things that you'd like to see continue to improve and why in the world?
Wow, I get three wishes, Train. That's amazing. I think I mean my first and foremost wish, and this is why I do the work that I do. This is why I wrote the book. This is why I've poured all that I am and everything into this calling because I think the time is now. My deepest wish is that all women feel a deep sense of satisfaction. I want it for them throughout their whole life, but I will take it in any form at any time. I just want her to know that she is valuable, that she is powerful, and that she is deserving of receiving everything that her heart wishes for and desires. So that would be my first wish. Beyond that, honestly, I don't know what my second, I mean, maybe the second wish would be the same kind of juxtaposition for men, right? Because we cannot be satisfied unless the men around us have a sense of purpose. Men really desire purpose. Women, satisfaction, men, purpose. I want men to live with purpose, to be purposeful, and to find the thing that their big, big hearts can be generous with. Because that will feed their purpose and their souls like nothing else. And you give that to men and women on this planet, and that will create a lot of happiness, joy, and simpatico between us and for all. For my third wish, it's probably for the children. That they see their mothers and their fathers and their caretakers of any gender expression or sexual expression in their healthy roles and participating in a way that is beneficial for them so that we can stop some of the damage and the trauma that has been done to us and for those that come after us to have a bit of an easier pathway to purpose and satisfaction.
And I want to add a fourth wish that I want men and women to continue to work together and ask each other how they can make their lives better, not only for themselves, but for the person you love as well as the world. Because Alana mentioned it, when you are happy, when you're satisfied, everyone else around you is. I think, unfortunately, we spend too much time focusing on the negative and I want to be alone and I don't need this and I don't need that versus I want this. I want to be loved. I want to give out my love. So I think if you could spend more time doing that, that would be a fourth wish as well.
I love that wish. We're definitely getting four wishes on this one.